I don't have to make gil because I'm rich. But for all of those who need help making gil, here is every way that I think you can make gil in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm starting off with this because I think this is the least consistent way to make gil because of variance and other things, and I call it market board shenanigans or cross-market arbitrage, which is basically going from one server or another world because of DC travel, finding an item that is cheap, and then selling it for higher on your own world and your own server. Now, there's no guarantee that you can make money here. There's definitely money to be made here, but there's so much variance in it all that it's hard to be like this is a consistent way to make gil all the time. For example, the wind silk bottoms are currently going for an increased price because they are needed for, your Christmas glams because it's the holiday season. Other items that go up in price are those that are going to need for fashion reports. But there's no guarantee if you buy something lower that someone will buy it higher on your server, and you can be just left holding the bag. This is why I don't spend so much time on this, and I don't think that, it's a consistent way or a good way for those who want to make a ton of gil. If you want to put the effort in to finding these trends, you can definitely do so. Unless you have like some mafia on your side, we gotta hide the body. The rest of these methods still use the market board, but only for selling. So there's no worrying about buying low and selling high and all of that. But starting off with the easiest, which I think is the challenge log. There's tons of things to do, such as fates, roulettes, collecting mats, collecting maps, dungeons. You can do these unsynced, trials, all sorts of things that you can do to complete your challenge log. It's very easy to get 20 or 30 of the challenges done a week just by putting in maybe 2 to 3 hours of effort, which will net you a nice amount of gil. Doing this every week on end, will definitely add up over time. Many of the things I mentioned below, such as dungeons and tribe quests, while doing these things synced, will also net additional gil, so you don't have to worry about which one you necessarily plan on doing. There is also the Leaves quest. With the addition of granting a challenge log, you actually get gil from these as well. And for those of you who are extremely lazy like I am with the Leave quest, you can actually buy these items off the market board like the commanding syrup, which will be on the screen, that you can actually buy from the market board and then turn it into the vendor for more than you bought it off the market board for. I do this every single week just to get the challenges done, and if you're in a real pinch for gil and you see that you can buy it for cheap, you can actually come away with 200 to 300k gil depending on how many Leave quests you have available. Hi, if you subscribe right now, I'll give you the entire list for free in an easy readable format. All you have to do is subscribe, comment below, and like. Coming back to maps now, whether you sell them or do them, you can definitely get one of these every single day, and currently are selling higher than usual, but this is another way to net a decent amount of gil. I know I mentioned dungeons and trials, but roulettes are a great way to get additional gil every single day, especially if you're doing those duty in needs. If you do all of your roulettes every single day in a week, you're going to get another like 2.3 million gil over the course of the week, without talking about challenge logs and loot drops and everything else that comes from the dungeon. Even when you're doing dungeons and trials unsynced, there is gil to be made here. Dungeons less so unsynced, but there's possibilities to get orchestration rolls and minions from dungeons unsynced. And if you take all of the gear, you can either sell it directly for gil if you're that desperate, or my alternative would be to turn them into seals, or if you want, you can level up your descent skill. All of those are good options. Personally, I think seals is the best, and you can turn them into minion boxes. The minions from dungeons may vary, and it's very important to pick some of the minions that are more sought after. With the addition of the 3.0 and 4.0 minion boxes, it may be best to pick a Shadowbringers dungeon to farm to try to get a minion, even though the time will take a little bit longer than usual. But these minions, especially some of the Endwalker ones, still go for upwards to 1 million gil. This can also be done with trials, which is generally sought after for the trial mats, whether it's for glamours or other things. And if your decent level is high enough, if you happen to get a weapon and you descent it, you could double down and get more mats. The prices of these vary greatly. However, if you get a small group of friends together, you can definitely get a couple mats for everyone. Some of the Shadowbringers still require 8 people, so maybe that's a future endeavor. Though Heavensward Extreme Trials can be soloed, the price of these mats generally have decreased because of the availability of these items. But if you're in a pinch, this is definitely a way to make a little bit of gil. If you have friends, I would suggest going to Stormblood or Shadowbringers for these trial maps. With them adding Shadowbringers Glamour, and in the future, probably Endwalker Glamour, to save those mats for when those items become craftable would be a good way to make some additional gil. To some extent, this can be done for raids, for orchestration roles. The only set of Glamour that you can really craft is the Bahamut raids. You can solo all of them. The mats don't sell for as much as they do, but this is another way that if you see availability on the market, you can definitely make a couple gil here as well. I keep coming up with things after the fact, but Unreal would be another way that you can collect a little bit or a lot of it of gil if you're willing to put in the effort. The mounts and those minions that are available are selling for Muko millions. So the Corgi was selling for 7 million the first week it was out. So if you're one that can struggle through Unreal every single week or have a static to be able to do it, you can definitely collect a decent amount of gil from doing these on a, I would say, like bi-monthly basis. It's not going to be quick, but you can definitely get a good chunk of change over time. Other combat related things that you can do to make gil are hunt trains. You can get a certain amount of materia from doing hunt trains every single day or week or whenever they're available, and S ranks. And you can use these nuts to also buy materia to sell, or you can level up your descent, or get seals if you really want. All of these options are great, and all of these ways will passively produce gil. You can also do the weekly clan hunt, which is just find a random B rank on the map from the hunt board. That's an additional 5k gil if you really want to. I would like to preface again that there is no quick way to get gil. The best way to make gil is over time and passively, and there's no oil princes in Final Fantasy XIV. No one's going to send you a random tell asking you, hey, would you like to inherit all of my gil? So onto the last part of combat related ways to make gil is going to be Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High. You can definitely do these for glamour pieces from the sacks, most notably from Palace of the Dead. Even though Heaven on High does have them as well, Palace of the Dead is more consistent way to make gil. And as you get further and further along, the rewards become better and better, each of them having a mount that can sell upwards to 10 million gil. Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High can be challenging, so it's best done as a team. And you have to get decently far, so the time investment to get into all of this is kind of high, so keep that in mind. Eureka and Bajra is probably the last combat way to get gil, and these are generally more popular as the expansion comes to an end or in off content patch cycles, so near the end of patches, so keep that in mind as well. Logarithms from both of these areas can sell for a decent amount of gil and come from a variety of sources, so if you happen to get those, you can use them for yourself or sell them from gil. Eureka has the addition of the Baltesian Arsenal, which has other items that if you go into certain discords and happen to find a group to be able to do it, if you get lucky with drops, some of the items here sell for a decent amount of gil for the time investment to get here, because you probably take 60 to 70 hours to be able to do the Baltesian Arsenal in the first place. But if it's something that you endeavor to do, you can definitely make a gil there. And we're on to more passive ways to make gil. I'm going to stick in Eureka for one more area and be like, if you happen to have this leveled, you can do bunnies because everyone loves bunnies. And this is a guarantee of 10 to 100k gil based off of the chest that you get. And then you can also sell the items from the chest that you get as well. This happens every 10 to 15 minutes in one of the final 3 areas, most popular done in the 3rd area. But either the 3rd or the 4th area, you will find groups doing these, and they both have mounts that can sell for upwards to 5 million. The new variant dungeons also have glamours that you can sell, with runs taking anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, and after 3 runs you'll be able to afford a glamour piece. They sell for a decent amount now, but I question the longevity of this. However, if you're watching this video early enough, you will definitely be able to take advantage of this. Okay, but actually now onto the non-combat and passive path like everyone else says, and make sure you do your ventures. Not a lot of gil, but you know it adds up over time if you get lucky. Custom deliveries is another way to make gil. There's a bonus here as it's a challenge log. You get gil for the actual completion. If you not leveled your crafters, it will level your crafters, and you get the addition of script, which you can buy materia with. Materia is probably the most consistent way to make gil over time for any player, so this is another avenue to acquire scripts easily. Other crafting related ways to make gil would be glamour, so generally either seasonal glamours or weapons that come from trials. Foods pots are always going to be in demand for raiders, and housing furniture, so those are items that I would look into crafting if you are trying to make some gil crafting. It's not as profitable as it used to be, however those are the items that I would look at. Gathering is another way to make gil, but generally if you name any of the items needed to make the crafts that I mentioned previously, if you get those items, that's going to be a good way to make gil. Diadem is another way to make gil, whether you be buying mounts or glamours from the sky scripts, or selling the mats that you get that others will use to level their crafters. So if you haven't leveled your gatherers, this is going to be a great way to make gil and level your gatherers at the same time. There's another side of gathering to make gil, and this is going to be called spirit bonding. Generally, you want to get all of your gear pentamelded, you pop a spirit meld potion, and then you gather the highest level material that you can, whether it be the new legendary mats or aether sand. All of those which you can sell as is for gil, and then once your armor is spirit bonded, you can extract materia and send that as well. If you are pentamelded and you have the best spirit bond potion, small correction on spirit bonding, it takes about 5 or 6 nodes to actually max out your spirit bond to be able to extract materia, and this can take like 10 to 15 minutes depending on where you are at. I also want to mention that 590 gear will spirit bond slower than 560 gear, so if you have all 590 gear or the new patch gear which comes out in 6.3, your spirit bonding process will be slower once again. We'll get you spirit bonded so you can get upwards to 12 materia for your gear every single 2 nodes, and then you can sell that off. You can easily make 100 to 200 materia this method in an hour, which is a lot of gil selling it. I think when I first did it, I made like 1.1 million. It's a lot less now, but just to want you to know, this is another way for those who enjoy gathering. You can make gil this way. I made a video on this previously, but a lot of people will say poetics and buy sand and whatever, and I think poetics are best served either converting into seals or leveling your decent skilled and then turning the seals into minion boxes. One of the last ways I'm going to talk about making gil is using the Doman Enclave. Every single week you can get upwards of a 200% boost to the amount of gil you can make for just turning in items here. It's basically vendoring them for twice as amount that you normally could, upwards to 40k. So for those of you who just want to get extra gil every single week, this would be a good way to make gil. Next way is with Island Sanctuary and your Marmot deliveries for the blue candies. I would suggest turning these either into materia or dyes. I think materia will be a little bit better for overall gil making. And you can make as much blue candies as you want here, whether you want to do minimal crafts and minimal gathering or put in the effort to optimize your island. This is definitely an additional way that you can gil. One of the most interesting tips that I've ever received about money making and gil making, I think comes from the fact that when everyone runs something, you should run away from it. And the example I have for this is when the Manderville weapons came out, everyone used their astronomy tomes in order to get their relic weapon. And no one was buying any of the materials such as like the mistletoe that are needed for pots. So the price of those actually skyrocketed when the Manderville weapons came out. These are trends that you need to look for, that hey, if all of the material or all the effort and everyone is spending their time gathering this material, maybe that's not something that I want to gather. Maybe because of this, there's a lack of supply somewhere else, and then you can fill that demand for an increased premium gil. So I just want to throw that tip in at the very end. And the absolute best way to make gil is subscribing to the channel. Okay, everyone wanted me to do, but I feel wrong. But like, here it is anyway. Billy Mays here. Make sure you like and subscribe. No, but seriously, his name's actually Billy Mays.